Mofe has taken here on AI automation specialist. I'm sure by now one or two people remember Mr. Mosfe's face. So without wasting more time, Mr. Mofe, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. So you can proceed from here. Let me stop sharing my screen so you can share yours.
All right. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us again for another session. Uh, I like to believe that so far we have learned a lot, and even from the session last week, I'm aware that we made some predictions or we try to understand the concepts of predictions. So today we'll be moving forward, and I hope that we can all tag along and continue to learn. Like I said before, and I'll continue to say, this are what we're covering in this course are essential skills that, could make you very valuable in the nearest future just by understanding the very concepts. So again, I'm thankful and I'm glad we're all here again today. I will start by sharing my screen and then we will begin. I do hope you can see my screen. Thank you, Tony. All right. Before I start today's class, I would just like to give us a quick warm up. And so before we got to where we are today, we have been talking a lot about models, the different ways to train your model. We talked about machine learning life cycle, right? From where you start from and where you end, which is predictions, right? So we've talked about your data, how you get your data, why you should make sure you clean your data. And we talked about feature engineering, and then we talked about model selection and training. And then we did some evaluations. And then finally, we're making productions, right? We also mentioned the different environments where we have the training environment and then the production environment, right? So we've covered a lot and and it'll only keep getting better, right? So now that we understand what it is to create a model and how we can use different techniques to create that model and how today, thankfully, it's not as complex as it was to create and train models. And now we could use basic code. What we're going to do today is we're going to, well, basically further understand how we can automate that entire workflow. So the machine learning lifecycle is a workflow in some sense, right? It goes from data cleaning to feature engineering, model training, evaluation, and predictions. Each step is important to the entire life cycle, right? So what we're doing today now is instead of having to run each step over and over and over again, so every time you want to, let's say you have new data you want to train your model with. All right. Ideally, not ideally, but manually, you would have to clean the data from the start again. You would have to, perform feature engineering all over again. You'll also have to run the training, and that could take hours, days, depending. And then you now finally evaluate and then make predictions to see if your model is good enough to go out into the real world and solve problems, right? And that's the basic workflow. Now, what pipeline does is, or what ML pipelines are, is we don't have to manually do each step again, right? We can automate the entire workflow so that as soon as new data is added to the workflow, our training process starts. So as soon, let's say we got some new data from a different branch and we want to train our model, right? So we're going to just feed our data into our machine learning pipeline and the process just starts. So the data will be cleaned, then the same feature engineering codes will be performed on the data set. So our model is ready to receive that information. Then the training process immediately starts as soon as the feature engineering stage is done. Training process starts. After that, you would evaluate your model and then it would make predictions, right? So what we're doing today now is we're going to try to understand what an ML pipeline is, why it's essential, and why they make our lives easier and how to do it. So I should say, again, our structure for this next 2 weeks would be I'm going to do a lot of theory today, right? Try and just get us grounded in what it is to automate ML pipelines. And then the next class will cover a full start to finish practical where we are creating a machine learning lifecycle, and then we're going to automate the pipeline, right? And we're going to do that using BigQuery. But so that being said, let's get into it. So like I said, we'll cover what is ML pipeline, the key stages of a basic ML pipeline. It could be very complex, but we'll do a simple one for our class. Why do we automate ML workflows, the different orchestration tools and platforms? What is data ingestion, feature engineering at scale, the automated model training. We'll do some model evaluations using the UI, and then briefly just discuss what CI/CD for ML is, and then we'll talk about model deployment pipelines. So, introduction will be our session is going to focus on we're going to build a model manually. We're going to build a model manually, right? And then we're going to automate that entire process. Because in our previous sessions, we've done a lot of machine learning using BigQuery ML. So we're going to shift from building those models, right, manually to designing a system that is automated, a system that runs on its own as soon as new data is imputed into the workflow. Right. But the goal being to understand how machine learning moves from experimentation, our training into production environment, right? So what that means is after we're done with training and we're moving to production, we don't want to have to come back every time we want to train the model. We have to take each step one after the other. We just want to make sure it's automated. As soon as somebody sends in new data, the model is trained again, and we have a model that is functioning, that's up to date. So that's what it is to automate your pipeline. You take out a lot of the manual things you'd have to have done, and then you just click a button, and then your model is retrained and ready to work. So what is a pipeline? It's a sequence of connected steps which automate the entire ML lifecycle. So right from the raw data into prediction. So like I said, in our practical class, we will implement a simple machine learning pipeline, and it will cover 4 stages, mostly 4 stages. I know we see 5, but we will do, hold on. So the pipeline will cover the data cleaning, right? So we'll write the code and we'll solve it, we'll save it as a BigQuery SQL, right, file, right? So we're gonna do data cleaning and then we'll automate the feature engineering. So I know in our classes before, we had to actually maneuver or engineer our code every single time we wanted to train the model, right? So by automating our pipeline, we don't have to do this. And it goes from the pipeline consists of 4 stages. So the data cleaning, feature engineering, model training, and then prediction. The evaluation, we're going to do that using the UI, and that's what we did in our last class, where we could actually see our confusion matrix. We could see the threshold, precision, accuracy, and all those other metrics that are essential to making sure that we have a production ready model, right? So our pipeline naturally consists of, it could be more, but basically these four things: data cleaning, feature engineering, you train your model, you evaluate, and then you make predictions. So why do ML pipelines matter? It is a shift from manual to an automated machine learning system, right? And they solve the problem by structuring the entire life cycle from data preparation, prediction, into a repeatable and automated step, ensuring consistency and reduces human intervention. So, like I said before, a model isn't a one-time artifact, right? It's a continuous system that evolves as new data becomes available to it. So if a model is ever put into production, it needs to be able to keep up with the new data that's been added. And to do that manually would cause some inefficiency. It could be prone to errors because as much as I love being a human being, we are I do say we give our best, right? We try to give our best, but we are still prone to error and certain inefficiencies because we get tired, right? Nobody wants to look at the same thing and do it over and over and over again, right? If we could automate some certain tasks in our day-to-day lives, I'm sure that a lot of us will be, even if it's a little bit, slightly more happier. So that's what automating ML pipelines are. They reduce that inefficiency that could have occurred from manually repeating that task and ensure that each step is covered one after the other, right, till our model is trained and we can have solid predictions. So like I said, we'll be looking at four key stages, right? And we'll implement it using BigQuery only. So we'll use the BigQuery scheduled query feature, right? So it would allow us to add each step, right? One after the other, and then we can just execute the entire pipeline anytime new data comes in, or we can schedule it to run at any particular time we want. So let's say for our company, we know that every Monday we get a new data upload. So the information from last week is uploaded into our database, right? Automatically, if we schedule our training pipeline to occur, so let's say the data always comes in at 10 a.m. every Monday morning, we can schedule the pipeline to run at 11 a.m., right? So as soon as data comes in, by 11, our data is being processed and is ready for the training by highest. By 12 o'clock that day or 1 p.m., we have an up-to-date model, right? So it's an up-to-date model that is functioning and is answering users' questions and is, performing like it should. So like I said, key four stages, we'll clean, feature engineer, train our model, and we'll make predictions. Data validation and cleaning. So this is the first step in our pipeline. Like I said, it is a connection of different steps. That's what makes up a machine learning pipeline, right? So data validation is very important. It is the start, basically, it's the start for any machine learning workflow. Why? Because I think it's important because your data determines how well your model performs. If you have inconsistent data, biased data, data that has is incomplete, or data that has irrelevant information, by the time your model is trained and you push it to production, God forbid you put that kind of model in production, but if you push a model like that into production, you would lose whatever it is that if it was your client, if it was the service you're providing, you would lose your investment just because your model will be making terrible predictions and that's all because you got your data validation and cleaning wrong. It's a very, very important step. I can't stress it enough. It can make or destroy your model. So anytime you're training models, engineers, data scientists, they take a lot of time on their data validation and cleaning, right? Because it's just very important. So step acts as a gatekeeper, ensuring that only high quality data flows into the rest of the pipeline, right? So it's the start of it. So we always try to make sure we don't get it wrong. All right. So feature engineering, and then our next step is feature engineering in machine learning. Now, I know we have said feature engineering a lot throughout this course, and I hope by now that you understand to an extent what it is to feature engineer, right? And it's crucial. It is very crucial because this is where we're transforming our raw data. So the data that we just cleaned is how we're transforming our raw data into meaningful inputs, right? This is inputs that our model can actually learn from. And if you can remember, I've said feature engineering basically is combining one or two columns, and columns are features are the another name for columns, right? So it's basically combining one or two columns mathematically to derive a new column, right? Which would help our model learn better. Now, you can't just go around combining two different columns, random columns together. It has to be logical. It has to provide information. So it could be, in our last class, we looked at the salary and age interaction. We're trying to see if the older you are, the more salary you get, or the younger you are, the more salary you get. That's a logical feature that we engineered, right? We're trying to see some logic. It needs to make sense. We can't just do uh customer's ID and the ID number on the table. That doesn't make any sense. We just have 10 long numbers, right? So we need to make sure that whatever we're designing, whatever features that we're engineering, columns that new columns that we're creating need to make sense. All right. I hope we can understand so far. So far. All right. In our practical class, we'll do some more feature engineering so we can see. So we're gonna actually cover each step and then we'll automate our pipeline in the practical next week. All right, so after our feature engineering, it's model selection and training. So this is where we start to train our model. And like I said, things are a lot easier now. So we just a couple lines of code and we have an active model. So using BigQuery ML, it allows us to train machine learning models directly using SQL, which has reduced and eliminated the need for separate frameworks. Separate frameworks being PyTorch or TensorFlow. You don't need to understand those frameworks anymore. You can just write SQL, right? And then it just makes training efficient and straight to the point. Our next step will be the model evaluation, right? And that's what we'll use the BigQuery UI, and we'll just look at our metrics again. We'll see how our model performed, how the training happened. We'll look at the precision. Is it good enough? Is our recall good enough? Our accuracy, is our loss dropping? All those metrics, we'll look at it next week, and we'll try to see if our model trained properly, right? And if our pipeline is working the way it should. Because if it's not, we will get errors. But we'll see all that live in person next week. The final step in our pipeline is to create and store predictions, right? So predictions is how we know if our model is getting our answers right or not. So based on the test, right, we can determine, and based on the information in our predictions, we can determine if our model has learned correctly, if our model has learned anything from our training or it's just giving us back wrong information. Because I remember we looked at a table and then we could see that sometimes it got it right, sometimes it got it wrong, and it was still showing us that it was 0.0.9 or 90% sure that it was false when the actual value was true. And I think our conclusion from that was that we needed to train our models some more so that we can actually get the right values. But basically, predictions are important. They're a very important part of the machine learning life cycle because it allows you to visually understand and see what's wrong and how we can try to make it better. So what is it to automate the pipeline? So to keep it simple, like I said, we'll just use one service, which is BigQuery. The Google Cloud platform is a very vast platform that offers different degrees of services. But to make sure that we're not overexerting ourselves, right, we will just keep it to one service, BigQuery. And by the time you're done with this course, well, I think I could confidently say that you would really understand what BigQuery is and the services that it provides, and you really be able to harness a lot of the features without having to go overboard into the Vortex AI or Kubeflow pipelines feature, which we obviously need to pay for. But BigQuery has enough, right, to just train your models and get you a registered model working, right? So you will be well, very well versed in BigQuery. So if the feature we'll be using in BigQuery is BigQuery scheduled queries, right? And it enables the automation of SQL scripts. So which allows us to execute data processing steps, the training steps, the prediction steps. So we're not going to do anything. Once we do it the first time, we don't have to do it again. That's basically what it is, right? And this orchestration improves the efficiency and ensures that there's timely update within the machine learning workflow, right? So, like I said, we're creating our models and we're doing all these machine learning tasks with SQL code, right? And no frameworks. But BigQuery's scheduled query allows us to add those different tasks as those different SQL scripts as different tasks in our pipeline, and then we can run that entire pipeline to get our model working. So it allows us to run our script automatically. We could pick a time at intervals. You get to decide. Using that scheduled query, like the name implies, you can schedule your queries, right? And using the example I gave before, if we need our model trained by 11 p.m. every 11 a.m. every Monday because data comes in at 10, we just use the scheduled queries and time it for 11 a.m. So using BigQuery and the scheduled query, it is a simple approach. There are a lot more complicated ways to run a pipeline. We could be writing actual Python or TensorFlow, but all we need is the scheduled queries from BigQuery. All right. All right. So what are the orchestration tools do we have there, right? So like I said, we're using BigQuery scheduled queries for our practical. So we're not going to really look into Vortex AI or Kubeflows, but I just want you to understand that there are other options, especially in other platforms, that allow you to create this pipeline, create more complex pipelines, right? Pipelines that you need to install dependencies, you need to get your data from a different source. When it's really intense, right? That's when you start to use features like Vortex AI or Kubeflow pipelines. Now, what they do is they allow us to create those complex but scalable pipelines, allowing teams to connect and reuse those dependencies and components that make the pipeline work. Right? It's the same thing for Kubeflow. It's just a Python-based domestic language that allows us to domain-specific language that allows for designing and deploying ML workflows, right? Offering flexibility and control for data scientists and engineers in enterprise environment. Now, I'm just telling you this so that when you come across it later on, at any point in your careers, it won't be new to you. You would see it and understand what it is. It's just a cooler way to run the pipelines. But what we'll be doing is very simple and straight to the point. So we'll be automating the model's retraining process. No, the goal for an automating a machine learning life cycle is that we can go this 4 steps, the feature engineering, model training, predictions. We can just keep it in a certain loop and set a timer for it, right? So anytime something comes in, anytime schedules, once the schedule time is up, the process starts, right? So in a dynamic environment, In a dynamic environment, the model must be retrained regularly to remain accurate, right? And retraining can be triggered by based on intervals such as days or weeks, or based on change in the data. So it could either be where we set the timing or when a new data comes in. So that's what it is to automate model retraining process. Another key point or element in machine learning or the machine learning lifecycle is you're monitoring your model's performance. Monitoring is very critical for ML pipelines because it allows us to track the performance over time. By storing and understanding our evaluation metrics and the prediction outputs that our model makes, we can see the potential issues in our model before it happens, or we can detect data anomalies. Right? So effective monitoring ensures that the model remains reliable and provides insights into when retraining or adjustments are needed. So by monitoring our model, we can really see how it's performing. We can understand and predict or forecast potential pain points that could happen. So if we see that our precision is falling after every training session, we see that our precision is falling, but the accuracy is going up, something is off, right? So we use all these metrics to monitor our model and make sure that it's performing the way that it should perform. I should say this that today would most likely be a short class, but I will keep going forward. So our next item is our metadata and lineage explained, right? And metadata is just it's naming for data in a sense. The metadata and lineage it provides visibility to how the models were created and used. It just gives us information about the training runs, the different parameters used in that training, the performance metrics. Well, that's metadata. So it just gives us, it helps us, it gives us the information we're looking for. It titles the information we're looking for. It's like, well, the lineage shows us where that data is coming from. It shows us, what the data was like before we turned it into that feature table, that engineer table. It shows us where do we get our data from, and is essential because all these metadata and lineage understanding is essential because it helps with debugging, it helps with auditing, and it makes sure that we're on track with our compliance. Right. So if you are trying to find a problem in your model, the fact that you can see the metadata and you can see that lineage of where the data came from, you can easily, full track it down and find out the source of your problem. If it's that the model, if it's that the feature engineering step didn't work as well, right? Or our data wasn't clean enough. Based on the lineage and the metadata, the information provided in the metadata or the lineage of our data, we can see where the likely problem started from. Our next item is integrating machine learning flows for enhanced pipelines. Right. So what this is that there are third-party tools that enable organizations effectively manage their ML workflows, right, and track experiments, deploy models seamlessly, ensuring flexibility and scalability within existing cloud infrastructure. What this So basically, there are other tools that we could use or that can be used as third-party tools that enable us automate these different ML workflows. Like, for example, if we're going to write our training process on Google Colab, but we wanted to store it or we wanted to run our model after we've trained it, we wanted to run it in a different platform like Azure, right? There's through API connectivity, right? We can connect these different applications to each other and then have our model information transferred from a third-party tool or from our existing platform to a different third-party tool, which is basically just designed for a particular use case. So let's say in our pipeline, right? If you wanted to do data cleaning and there's a software, somebody has developed a software that the main goal is to just clean your data, right? So all you would do is you load your data to that software and the software will clean the data and give you your clean data. Now you want to do some feature engineering and somebody made another software that is made for feature engineering only. You run your clean data through that feature engineering software and then it produces the cleaned and feature engineered data set. The next step would be your model training. So let's say after all that, we bring our information, our data into BigQuery or GCP, right, for the training process. After we're done the training process, we now want to expand, we want to deploy our model into a different platform like Hugging Face or Azure, whatever it is, right? That's what it is to integrate your applications or use third-party tools in your ML workflow, right? So you can if, effectively function or monitor each steps that are essential in your workflow. So what are the key insights for an ML success? So to ensure that the ML lifecycle is successful, the real value lies in creating a system that can operate continuously and adapt to changing data. By structuring the workflows into pipelines and automating execution and monitoring the performance, we can build robust and scalable ML systems. The simplified pipeline that we will implement in class will provide a good foundation to understanding how to automate pipelines, why they are essential, and it gives us a look into how advanced tools and architectures are used in production environment, right? So what we're going to be looking at next week is going to really show us all the talk that I've done today is going to really show us what it's like. It won't be complicated at all. I've tried to make sure it's as straightforward as possible. We'll also have a take-home assessment that we can use to just practice and get comfortable with BigQuery, right, and the UI. So finally, we're going to, like I said, do the practical. It's going to be hands-on, and I hope you can all join us. We will actually all just sign into our Google platforms and follow each step one after the other, applying all the concepts and seeing how to fully automate a machine learning pipeline, right? Uh, that being said, that is all for today. I'm thankful for all of us, everyone that's joined. I'd like to ask if there's any questions that you'd want to, if you're lost in some way and you need some clarification, I will happily go over it so that we are all ready for the practical class next week. Any questions? I hope we have been following. I hope you understand. All right then. Well, since nothing, I assume that we all understand and we're all ready for the practical class next week.
All right.
That being said, thank you. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Mofe. That was amazing. Like we all know that the practical session is where the goodies are, and that's where everything will be done very deliberately. So, and we're going to be making sure that the class is coming up on Saturday and on Friday, sorry, next week, Friday. And please, I want every one of us to be there because that is ex like that's essentially how you know how to create pipelines and to do the full automation yourself. I'm also using this class to refine my own understanding on YouTube automation, which I do stylishly, and that as this class has really been helpful for me to understand more about JSON file and to use Python, just to to be able to move my whole my pipeline to my local host, to be able to run everything from my computer. Because I also do personal, research too after the class. That I'm sure that would help a lot. It will really take you further than just the class. It will give you more in-depth knowledge because, we do better by doing more research. All right. I would like everyone to help me appreciate our trainer for today, Mr. Mofer.
Thank you
And
for
please,
having me.
all right, thank you, Mr. Mofe. And please, if you've not signed your attendance form, you can do well to, go to the link sent on the chat box. The attendance form has been sent there, so please do well to fill the attendance form. It's nice to have you, Labake, on this call. It's been a very lovely session. And I know why it's short because this is just the theoretical aspect, and there's the practical aspect is coming back on Friday. So I hope everybody will be there. And please do not forget to sign and to fill in the attendance form. And one last thing, I'll be reminding us about the summer program coming up June 6th. The summer program is a blast. It's a blast because it's going to be featuring four courses: diploma in business analysis, project management, ISO management systems, and AI. So, and it's going to just be 10,000 naira for registration. It's from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And the registration fee is just 10,000 naira. So basically, I hope to see everyone there. You can tell your friend, tell your family, tell your loved ones. You can also please make sure to tell your enemy also, because at least we need to, in this world, the best thing you can do as a person is to share good knowledge. And this is a source for amazing knowledge, not just good knowledge, amazing one. So thank you very much. I hope to see you all next week, and you'll be getting the material and the recorded version of this class, and everything will be on the WhatsApp group. All right, thank you. Nice to have you all. Bye. See you later.